Hello and welcome back to Proverb Minutes, especially if you've been here before. We're going through a study on the heart, which has lasted for quite a time. And this is not an easy lesson. It's somewhat in this area that I've been teaching lately is a very condemning area. It convicts the most of us. So I thank you for your patience. Last Sunday here when I was assembling a visitor had a kind word. I went up to her and I had said some, harsh things that are, difficult to understand and very condemning in our society as truthful wise. And so I told her, I said, if I've said anything offensive, I certainly don't mean to offend anyone in what I'm saying. You know what she said? I was really inspired. She said, if you didn't say something offensive, you wouldn't be telling the truth. Because how many times that we mask the truth with the lie, or make an excuse instead of taking the accountability that we need to improve, and that we're all sinners, and that we need to get the forgiveness of Christ and His sacrifice, the blood that washes us when the judgment comes. And so we need those things, and to not think about those things that are most important. What is it in life? We can't talk about politics, we can't talk about sex, and you can't talk about your job. What is it that we can talk about? The things that are most important in our lives? Because when it comes to the point where we can't even talk about the basics of living, let's read here from Hosea 7:2. They do not consider in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. We can't get away from the things that we've done that are hopefully now that we're repenting of. I always remember the song to all the girls that I've loved before. And if there's any of those listening, surely I have no bad feelings and only love for those that I miss that have been in my earlier life. But now today I am very happily married, and thank God for that precious, precious angel that He's given to me. But here, look, now their own deeds have surrounded them. They are before my eyes. So we can't get away from those wicked things that we've done in the past. And if we don't come to a point to where we can acknowledge them, ask for forgiveness for those things that we've done that were wrong, and how are we then able to release them? Take that backpack off. How many times when you're growing up has somebody told you, you got to get rid of that backpack you're wearing? And it's really true symbolically. We need to dump off the sins of the past and put on the light of the future and our direction into heaven itself. Because we are surrounded by the deeds that we do. And if we haven't been able to suppress or put away those things that are unfavorable, that are unattractive in His declaration of truth, the truths that have been delivered on decency and integrity, we've talked about it now for months, then woe to those that can't put away the dark heart and turn on the light. Because we're surrounded by ourselves, like I've said before. You can't get out of your own fingernails. God has made this on purpose to get us to deal with ourselves on an absolute level. You can't get out of your fingernails. And so we have to deal with it. We have to understand it. We have to endure it. We have to get that perseverance that drives hope. And hope is a creation that won't last forever. But what will last forever is the love that we can share and develop together. And that's what God has told us. Look at 1 Corinthians 13. It's love that remains, So let's take that to heart. And put on the light. In where? In our hearts. But so many have fallen away to the deceptions of the material, haven't they? And look at here, the spiritual leaders. Luke 16:14. Now the Pharisees, boy, the guys that had all the spiritual answers, who were lovers of money. Do we see religions doing that today, and the deception, luring the poor in? When I was out in the Bay Area, and Jim Jones was popular, he was collecting all the welfare recipients, and mostly the African Americans and minorities. And he was collecting them, and they were mostly all on welfare. And Sacramento wanted to help him. Yeah, take all these people down to Guyana. And who was the lovers of money there? The government, Jim Jones, kind of a combination. And even though the tragic events of, Congressman Leo Ryan getting shot and 900 odd people drinking that Kool-Aid, committing mass suicide, how often do we forget these things? When I talk to young people and ask them about David Koresh or Jim Jones, who are you talking about? They have no clue. We forget our recent history, the roots of our own deception, and where we've come from. So here, they also heard these things that Jesus was announcing, the truth of it all, what they didn't want to hear, the Jim Joneses, the David Koreshes, whatever it may have contemporarily been. They didn't want it to be told because they were the ones that were the Jim Joneses. And they derided him. Jesus, they derided him. And he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves before men. You take handouts from the government to perpetuate your own actions without accountability and without giving back. If you get help, it's a two-way street. I get help. I've always appreciated the help that I've gotten through all the adversity that I have encountered in life. It hasn't been an easy road, and it hasn't been for any and all of us. But for these guys that are up on the top here, they justify themselves before men, but God knows your hearts. Even though people may condemn us or commend us, in the long run, it's God who sees the heart, whether we're good or bad. And look at this here, down to the bottom. For what is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. And so these tall hotels that are square footage is 3 times the, declared size. Boy, who are you trying to impress? Really? We should be trying to impress God, because no matter what denomination of currency is out there, if that's what we're looking for is in the things that we can accumulate and not the spirit of joy and happiness, that the love we can share among one another, boy, what an empty heart that is. And these people, these Pharisees, they derided him. They didn't care for him because he was telling the truth. And what is it? What is the synonyms for derided? Derided, some of the synonyms, he was mocked. You ever feel like you're being mocked for telling the truth? How about knocked for telling the truth? I mean, I can give you countless examples in my own life where people, throw you under the bus because they're so afraid of the bus being exposed of their own, flat tires. And what about being rejected? Have you been rejected in life for telling the truth? Have you been despised for telling the truth? Yeah. Ridiculed for telling the truth? Sound familiar? How about being slammed for telling the truth? Yeah. So these people who justify themselves are the ones that are on, like I said in the past, cloud dwellers. They esteem themselves. They exalt themselves. But they're not esteemed in the eyes of God. They're an abomination. Their castle is built on the sand. And these are hard things to grasp. A lot of people, in our society, we look to people that are rich and have accumulated wealth and are living in beautiful spots in the Monterey Bay or the Sierra Mountains or Rockies, out on the Appalachians. The European, Swiss, half less, the beautiful parts of all the countries in the world, Russia included, and Japan. My gosh, there's so many places that are just astounding. The blessings of God have come to us in the nature that has been given to us. But to want the things over the Creator is really where we fall short. And to exalt that mansion on the hill of sand is not what is going to accomplish what we need to find in life. And again, I hope I'm not saying anything too offensive, but the most or a lot of us is going to be condemned without His merciful grace. And that's what we need to come to. if you've not been immersed or baptized, you share in the condemnation that the masses will be corralled into as they're pushed off the cliff, as those pigs were, as the demons were ejected. And so we need to take careful attention to not exalting those things that don't have permanence, but to exalt where the glory comes from, the Creator himself. Well, I thank you for coming to Proverb Minutes. I hope this has all helped. I hope that we can include a prayer or two for our loved ones. Help us to become better people, more loving, more understanding. Let us not have fragmented families, but have those families that never cease in being able to communicate with one another. And how a blessing that is when our love never is released, especially with our children and or our parents. Let us come back to God. Thanks for coming. Take care. Go out and help somebody. Say hello to your mom, dad, child, whoever it may be, friend, associate. Let's get to heaven in that we have caring, truthful hearts. Bye-bye for now.